guys, welcome and welcome to There Is Still Hope. Thank you so much for joining me and thank you for tuning in. Well, if you're new to my channel, I am Ndelema. Ndelema is the founder of There Is Still Hope, and There Is Still Hope is a place where we encourage people to move away from their past sorrows, places of defeat, places of discouragement, places that manage to break them down, and literally to encourage them to move on and live a life that matters. In a nutshell, we're saying there is still hope and that all hope is not lost. Well, if you have not subscribed yet, this is a place where we give hope. Please do subscribe and become part of There Is Still Hope family. Life has a way of making us go through storms we never prepared for, storms that we never saw coming. Some would cry and succumb to these very storms, and others will navigate through them. Well, this is the story of a young lady who have gone through the struggles, who have gone through the pain, and she is here to narrate her story, her journey, her footprints through life from her childhood. This is her story, this is her journey. Stay tuned. Well guys, another video, another day, another episode, another journey that we are going to listen to again. Well, I look forward to the story. I look forward to understand who you are, where you're from, and how you came about to know the Lord Jesus Christ. We are bringing you this story for nothing else but to encourage you. If you are sitting in a place of hopelessness, if you are at the verge of giving up, if you are having a feeling of, I've held on for far too long and I'm about to give up, don't give up. Let's listen to her story. We are here to give hope to the nation. We are here to give hope to anyone out there who's hopeless. There is hope. Hope is not out of your reach. The Lord Jesus Christ is ever saying, come, I want to heal you. I want to put you back together. The world might have broken you, but the Lord is able to put you together.
Amen.
Hilma, thank you so much for joining me. I know that this is not your first time on There Is Still Hope. For those who watches my video, they should believe they are familiar with your face. And I really just want to take this opportunity to say thank you so much for coming back to There Is Still Hope. Thank you for the willingness to, to come and tell us your story. We look forward to hearing who you are, to get to know who is Hilma and what has she been through.
Amen.
What keep her going? What is her strength? What is the secret behind the woman of God in you?
Amen.
Well, welcome to There Is Still Hope. Once again, thank you for joining us, and kindly introduce yourself.
Thank you so much, Ndelema. Thank you for welcoming me back. I'm excited. Yay! It's always so encouraging, to tell one story and knowing that it's going to encourage someone. So I'm very, very excited. Thank you for having me. But before we get into my story, so I'm Hilma. Hilma Ndelema. And Hilma is really just a daughter of the Most High God. I think for me that is the one identity that easily comes out. I can never really talk about Hilma without saying Hilma is a daughter of the Most High God. So Hilma is a wife to one husband, a mother of two. I like saying that I parent two extremes, a mother of a teenager and a mother of a toddler. So you can imagine what goes on in my life. Hilma is also someone that really believes in the work of ministry, serving in a certain ministry, obviously with her family. I would say I'm a child of Namibia. The reason why I'm saying I'm a child of Namibia is I was born in Omaruru. Okay, very strange, but I was born in Omaruru, and then moved. I started my grade 1 in the north, at the school where my mom used to teach. My mom was a teacher, retired now, and then she had to go back to school. And in the early 90s, I had to come and start my primary school in Okanja. Okay. And really that is where I think most of my life and the Hilma that I am was built.
Yeah.
My mom had to go back to the teachers college in Ongwediva back then, and I had to come stay with my grandmother. Now Hilma is a sibling. I have 4 siblings. I'm the second born. So coming to stay with my grandmother was really the change of my life. It really shaped the Hilma that I am, and I would say I was, especially before I met Christ, because a lot happened, and yeah, but we thank God. So by the way, I finished high school in Tsumeb. So again, so you will understand why Hilma is a Namibian child. And once I was done with my high school, I then moved to Windhoek, and I have not moved since.
Okay.
Yes.
Wow, I have so many questions. I don't know where to start. Nonetheless, stay tuned.
Yes.
How was growing up for you? What happened? How did you manage to go through becoming a child of Namibia? In a nutshell.
Yeah. So my father used to work in Omaruru some couple of years ago. My mom, when she started work, she started working in the north. Yeah. And obviously as a child you find yourself where your mother is. Yeah. And but then when she had to go do her teaching diploma, and the choice was I needed to go to my grandmother, and that's how I found myself in Okahanja. Now, when we think about growing up in Oshiwambo, we say Mushimba, you know, the other side of the red line. Yeah. Your picture is always of this perfect, you know, set up of a wall house, where you have everything. I like calling my story growing up in the dusty streets of Five-Friend. Okay. So the product that is sitting in front of you, most of her life was in Five-Friend. And you know, the one thing about growing up in places like this comes with a lot of challenges, and I wasn't exempted from any of them. And for me, growing up was also very difficult. I had to grow up very fast. I moved to Okanja when I was 8 years old, and I remember I had to quickly learn how to do my own laundry. I quickly had to learn how to cook, because it was just my younger brother, myself, and my grandmother. And my grandmother was a sickly person. So I quickly had to grow up. I wasn't given a chance to be a child. I automatically walked into a setting that I needed to be an adult somehow. But you know, we thank God for the healing that has come with.
Before we get into the details of all of this, I haven't heard you speak of your dad. Who played the father figure? You know, was he present? Was he not?
You know what, Ndelema? I think like many of the Namibian child who grew up knowing who their father is, but not really having a relationship with their father, that was me. Yes, I used to go visit my father in Omaruru as I was growing up, and I remember, I think the last time I went was, I think, in '96. he wasn't really, I wouldn't say he was present.
Yeah.
And that is why perhaps you will find that my story does not narrate so much about him, because I know who he is. He has been a part of my life here and there, but he has not really been, you know, fundamental to my growing up. I was raised by two strong women, my mother and my grandmother. May the soul of my grandmother, you know, rest in eternal peace. But unfortunately, I wouldn't really narrate so much about my father.
Okay.
Yes.
Would you say somebody else in your life played the father role?
Look, I mean, with my elder brother, he had to take that role, and especially when we started growing up. Most of who I am and the things that I didn't do was because I have not seen my brother do. One of the examples will be alcohol. I've never seen my brother drink, and one of the reasons why I don't drink is because of that, because he was and he is my role model. He's the one person that we all look up to. My mom is the only child from her mother's side, so you can imagine. So I don't have an uncle to look up to. We sort of grew up isolated, but my brother, and I think he played the role for all of us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Going back to the streets of Vijverand. Who was the breadwinner there? Since you mentioned that your grandmother was sickly, who was the provider?
We were. What do I mean by we were? My story is not of your typical, you know, child who comes from school and, you know, they go play.
Food is waiting for them.
Is waiting for them and all that. For me, my story was, you come from school. We used to brew a home brew at home, which was called katokele. I don't know how to translate that in English. When I come from school, I had to come sell. We had to make a pana. I had to go sell. Not at home. I will have to walk around the streets of Vijverand and go sell. From kapana to tomatoes to whatever was available to be sold, to put food on the table. Remember that my mom at some point was at school, so she didn't have an income for the 3 years. So we had to make it work for us. My grandmother tried, and I had to, being the next older one, I had to ensure that, you know, you were selling kapana, you were selling, you know, the fish, whatever it is.
So whatever it is that you were making in selling all of this was actually what was putting bread on the table. Now I understand why you said life didn't give you the opportunity to be a child. You needed to grow up very fast. Because at your age, you have already started knowing that if I don't go out and sell, there is no bread. And you know, Ndalenga, it goes deeper than that. You know, I always tell people that I hate poverty. I hate poverty because the streets that I grew up on smelled of poverty, looked the part of poverty. I had a roof over my head. We thank God. And honestly, my grandmother gave us the best that she could. When I talk about my story and when I tell people that I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth, people don't actually understand what I mean by that. I had to reject poverty. You know, I had to put my mind to ensuring that, you know, this is where it ends. It went to a point that, and I'm not trying to expose, you know, my growing up, because for the longest time, it was one of the things I'll never talk about.
I was so ashamed of just saying, yo, I grew up in 5 rand. So you grow up thinking that, there's no way I'm going to tell my story. But it went to an extent of, Mitko used to go throw away offal, meat like bones that is considered not to be fit for consumption. We used to go and go collect that.
How did you navigate between being the little businesswoman to provide for a whole entire household and school?
The one thing that my grandmother did not play with was school. So, man, come rain, come winter, come sunshine, and I remember those years, it was so cold. If it rained, it poured. So we had this bus that used to come collect the kids from 5 rand. We were the administrators, imagine. So we used to have a monthly fee that we used to pay for the bus to take us to school and from school. But even if that bus that day doesn't come,
you walk.
You will not go back home. You will walk all the way from 5 rand to no Abe. If it rains, you see that Swakop River, I think it's the Swakop River that flows through Okahanja, that big one. If that year it rains, it will flow to the brinks. How you get to school? You must just get to school, my sister. So how did I navigate? I wasn't given an option to give up. But also academically, I would say that I was really gifted. That's one thing that God did not take away from me. I would be that girl, and I'll get to the story of my high school. But even in primary school, I had my math teacher used to push me so much that if I'm not the first in class, it's an abomination. As we were beaten, he will have a whip. And he will say, multiplication of 6. And you must say from 1 to 12. If you just, just stutter, he will beat you. So for me, when it came to school, really and honestly, God has given me the grace to just go through school. I remember every year when there was prize giving in primary, I was there. And when they used to have teacher parent meeting, if they see my grandmother, then they will ask, what are you doing here? You are not one of the people that we are looking for. So we bless God for that.
So you were her pride.
Yes.
Let's look at, how did you divide your time? Studies and selling. How did you divide your time? Or would you say you were just gifted?
There comes the gifting, but also the gifting gets maintained.
Okay.
So growing up, by the way, the first time I studied under an electricity lamp was when I moved to the hostel in grade 11.
Oh my God.
So we used to have the paraffin lamps and candles. That's what we used as light. But the one thing is, if I needed to sit up and study for that test and study for that exam, I would. So it didn't matter. For me, the night time was for me to do my homework. My homework will always be done. Yes, I had all these responsibilities, but I would ensure that come tomorrow, my homework is done. If I needed to write a test, I have studied for it. So yeah, the night time was my time for studying. Yeah.
In the daytime, you do the others.
Yes.
Yo. Before we move away from your childhood, tell us about the defining moment in your childhood.
Man, for me, the defining moment, I think the person that I am today, and especially the one that is determined, the one that is not easily, broken by circumstances, one that will tell you that you can't tell me that life is difficult, because I've experienced it.
I've been there.
I've been there. I've lived it. It's not something that I'll tell you to say that, oh no, things will get better. I've been there and I've really seen the hand of God. From my childhood, the one thing that I would tell you that I would always take away is perseverance. Persevering and pushing, even when, you know, circumstances were difficult. Growing up with my grandmother was not always the easiest. You know, very strict woman, very, very strict. And we didn't always see eye to eye, and especially as I was growing up. But I think she has trained me to be the disciplined person that I am today, you know, and I thank God for that. I thank God that I had the chance to really experience life, because sometimes when you experience life, then you begin to value life. You spoke of the first time you studied under electrical lamp was when you went to grade 11. Tell us, how was the journey for you? Like from the girl that was providing for the house, and now you are literally in a hostel. Who was providing there? What was happening there? Who was making sure that you are okay financially? Let me just take you back a bit to moving to high school. And this is also another story. Again, still in 5 Rand, I moved to one of the best schools then in Okahanja, G.G. van der Walt. And that time it was still, you know, white dominated. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be racist or anything. I'm just trying to point out a fact. And I got the privilege of going to that school, still from 5 Rand. And I remember at some point in recent years, one of the ladies that I schooled with, we met at a certain, we were in the same church, and she was narrating to an aunt of hers to say that, this lady was so intelligent, and she would come to school even when she's smelling of smoke. And I didn't know that I was smelling of smoke.
You're used to.
Because you're used to the circumstance. And I was like, oh wow, I didn't know. I was mingling with, you know, the who's of Okahanja, even in my smell. Can you imagine? So now moving, when I wrote my grade 10, because I wrote my grade 10 still in Okahanja. I remember I needed to make up my mind, because it was the school only had until grade 10. I needed to make up my mind. I had a choice to come to Windhoek. Otherwise, I should have just chosen to go somewhere else. I chose to go to Tsumeb. And the reason was, I've heard of Windhoek. By the way, all the years that I've lived in Okahanja, I've never stepped into Windhoek.
So holidays, you would go to the north?
Yes, and it was a must. Every holiday, you are on the bus to the north. So I never knew Windhoek, but I've heard of Windhoek and the things that how, you know, kids leave smaller towns, come to the big city, and they just mess up their lives. And I said, that's not what I want for myself.
You're so determined to make it.
Yes. I said I want to go to Etosha. And I remember having an interview with the principal then, the cool Master Strovich, and he's asking me, so how, what do you think, you know, how do you think you will perform? Because marks were very important then. Performance, academic performance was very good, very important then for these schools that are well performing as well. And I told him that no, I'll write not less than 33 points. And I was very confident. And he's like, are you sure? I told him yes. And I wrote 39 points.
Wow.
And I got accepted at Etosha, and that's how I moved. By then, my mom was a fully fledged qualified teacher, and she was providing.
Yeah.
And also, like I mentioned, that's how I moved.
Yeah.
And she was catering for me. Obviously, every out weekend was closer to home.
Yeah.
I also dreaded coming back to Okanja. Yes. I think by the time I wrote grade 10, because of how my grandmother and I would also now not see eye to eye, I really just wanted to get out.
You know, for another child in your situation,
Yeah.
they would have bowed down to this life, you know, perhaps even gone the wrong way to cater for what you were catering by selling. What kept you going?
I think for me, it's I understood where I come from.
Yeah.
My identity was at times maybe beat into me, you know. My identity was instilled in such a way that I knew that I cannot fail myself.
Yeah.
I knew that I needed to push. When I was on the other side of not being born again, I maybe didn't really understand what it was all about. The one thing for me was identity. I knew that
You needed to uphold it.
yes, for me it was identity. Going to Tsumeb, you know, Tsumeb was such a free town. You can walk from the one end of the town to the other and you will be safe. I remember the first time I went to the club was there is an uncle of ours in Tsumeb. So every now and then for the out weekend, if mom doesn't send money or I will just want to preserve funds, then I'll go there. So there was a cousin of mine, he was older, he worked in the army, or he works, and he's the one that actually took me to the club for the first time. And you know why he took me to the club? It's so that I can go control him. I go hold his money, and when it's time to go home, I tell him, time to go home. Because I didn't drink.
Okay. Before we get there, I want to understand.
Yeah.
You were in grade 10.
Yeah.
Or grade 11.
11, yeah.
You are fully aware of who you are as a girl child. Fully aware that I'm beautiful.
Yeah.
How did you control that area of relationships, boys getting involved, and your decision of making it? How did you uphold that standard?
Yeah. Men, I think like any young woman, the desire to be seen, to be loved, you know, by the opposite sex, I think was there. And I remember before I left Okahanja, I had this boyfriend, but I thank my grandmother. Although it looked like she was unnecessary, she always ensured that she could see me. Do you understand? One would say that she was controlling because of your hormones that are running through you. But for her, that was her way of protecting. The one thing for me is I had a resentment for men. So as much as there was that aspect, I thank God for salvation.
Just explain. How did you come about that resentment?
So my father not being part of my life, I would call it now, I would say I had daddy issues.
In this age and time.
In this age and time, I would really say I had daddy issues. So for me, men, I would say were really nothing. Do you understand?
I made it without a father.
I made it without a father, so who are you? Do you understand? So even my approach on dating, I was the kind of girl that if I hear you saying that no, Hilma and I remember in high school, I went to the boys' hostel to go confront a boy because he was saying no, he was dating Hilma in front of his friends. So for me, it was that thing of
you needed to uphold your identity.
I was that strong female that didn't allow men to walk all over her.
They would call them an alpha female.
I didn't want to mention that. That's who Hilma was. To a point where I remember an incident in the hostel one day. We were going to eat. We used to eat with the boys. So the girls on one side, the boys on the other side. And I think it's one of my early days when I just got to the hostel. It wasn't even grade 12. I stood up and I was the head of the table. I stood up and I was going to get food, and the boys started booing, and I stood up and I looked at them and the room went quiet and I continued, and that was Hilma. Just had this thing of a man cannot tell me what to do. Known to be very strong at heart, strong character, very misunderstood, I think, because when you have a strong character as well, comes with a lot of misunderstanding. And I know that it was just a cover.
You needed to protect yourself.
I needed to protect myself because there was no one to protect me.
And it was very important for you to have that character, otherwise you would not have made it.
So Hilma was known for that, and that went into my early 20s, by the way. It's not something that died with teenagehood. It's something that just grew.
But did you date?
I dated, but it was, if I say it's the end,
it's the end.
Is the end. I didn't have the heart to say, oh no, I'm breaking someone's heart. Do you understand? Dating, I did date. And especially in my early years of dating, I didn't cling on to people. Do you understand?
You were independent.
I was independent, yet trying to be in a relationship.
You know, sometimes we need to understand what the absence of the father does to a girl child. You know, for some, they will be broken beyond repair. You know, some go out there looking for fatherhood in boyfriends, but you took a different approach where you feel like, you know what, I grew up without a dad, so a man will not be the one to dictate to me, which is also not the right way. But we'll get there when we talk about your healing.
And it was such an extreme thing to a point where if I needed to go to the north, I was not dependent on anyone. No, seriously. I was so independent, and it was scary because I would not ask for help from anybody. I had my own toolbox to fix things if I need to. If I needed, and a father's presence in a girl's life is very important, and I'm an advocate of that. I'm a mother of.
It brings out the softness of being
a girl.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm a mother of 2 girls, and I would do anything to uphold the relationship of my daughters with their fathers. I went back into dating and people that are of the world. And the enemy gave me someone that just knew how to break me. The day that relationship ended, Ndalenga, it took me a whole year to stop crying. Because I felt like this person understood me. They knew me. They accepted my daughter. How? No.
I'm trying to understand what happened between the Hilma that would not take no nonsense, and the Hilma that was broken down by this guy.